de directing door Alex Steffen, and you are watching Eclectic Arts Media.
Because of the color green, not a lot of people choose it. I don't know why.
I call it silly little guy work. You get to just show up and have fun and be goofy.
Hi, I'm Jackson, and this is...
I'm Jake Shimobukuro.
Anytime I'm doing anything, he wants to be involved. This is midnight.
If I can walk out of the ring the way I walked into it, I'm happy.
And that, and I'm like, I made it, I did it, and then I turned the wrong way, you know?
Life's not fair, is it?
I'm just going out meeting everyone dripping with sweat. Hey, who wants a hug? And then I'm singing and I'm going, I'm not all by myself anymore.
Oh, whoa. Whoa.
I know.
You are watching Eclectic Arts Media.
The amount of evenings where I am not at home, I'm in some other theater space, is like almost every single day of the year.
You know, even with editing, I get irritated. I'm like, but I get quite stubborn, you know?
An epic event.
And he's sitting, okay, I believe you. So
I think I forgot your question, but I went on a different path, but it felt great.
And then I got to move on. I don't have time for this.
And I need to keep as much hair as possible because, particularly in Hindley Street, no one's got hair. You'd fit right in, Mark. So
I can't believe it's been that long since we talked. Time flies.
Hello, your ruling cards.
Right. They may be super confused. Like, what is this woman talking about?
Projects with whatever theater I could reach around here, you know.
All right, look, hey, this is Alex Dorr from Cancer Slug. This is Cancer Slug, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media. See, I said it right.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts Media, based here in Seattle, Washington, and thank you so much for joining me on this Monday, the 16th of February, 2026. And I'd like to thank BJ Smith for joining me last night. It was great getting a chance to talk to him and everything he has going on before he makes the big move down to Los Angeles to pursue his film career. So I get one more chance to see him on stage starting this Friday here locally. And speaking of which, coming up, my next scheduled live stream is today. I have one at 6 p.m. Pacific scheduled with Ashley Blasky. She's another local theater actress that I've seen many times on stage, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with her and getting to know her better because I only know her from her stage work. I actually don't know everything else that is going on in her world, so that'll be tonight at 6 p.m. And if you'd like to know more of what I have coming up in the future, please follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first, and then some of that information migrates over to other social media platforms. If this is your first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you could do me a huge favor and please hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. And if you're over on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, that would be much appreciated. If you'd like to ask my guests during this live stream or any ones that I have in the future, if you want to ask them a question, you can just join the YouTube channel or the Twitch channel, and it should give you instant access to the live chat box. And just please be aware that if we're in the middle of a conversation, I do see your questions. I'll just try to fold them in as time allows and when there's good gaps in our conversation and things of that nature. And also if you would like to help support what I do, this streaming service costs me money every month. So if you're in a position to do so, there's a PayPal, me, and a Venmo link in every live stream that I do. That's only if you're in a position to do so. I just had a recent donation about a week ago from someone who's routinely donated, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. I'll just get an email notification like, oh, you have money, and I'm like, this is really, really wonderful, so I can put it towards this, towards my backdrops, my other gear. But again, as I said for the third time, only if you're in a position to do so. All right, my guest today is a producer, actor, and director, among other talents. His production company has a new documentary film called Artfully United. We just saw the trailer for that, coming to digital platforms this Friday. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Media virtual studio, Mr. Christopher Walters. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing very well, sir. How are you?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Awesome. I love it when I get to talk to film people, because that's, even though I review films and film festivals and things of that nature, I don't have that background myself at all. I'm a musician, photographer, writer. So I've learned a lot from talking to the different folks over the years. And so I want to kind of start off just from the top with this film that it sounds like it was a long process to get Artfully united together. Can you kind of let the people out there know what the ceilings were at the beginning and how we got to where we are in 2026?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I started making the Artfully United documentary with a gentleman who's a dear friend of mine, Mike Norris, and he's an artist and activist out in Los Angeles. He's from Watts. He has an inspiring personal story, and he's been involved with California Ceasefire Committee. He's worked with Compton Youth Build and taken at-risk kids out to Las Vegas, where he's done pillar installations and art commissions for community centers out there. He's done a lot of those in Los Angeles. He's done a number of these in schools. He's a brilliant artist. He makes his living doing both large commission pieces on canvas, on walls, and otherwise. He went to school for fashion design and has a bachelor's in fashion design and merchandising from FITM. And when I met him in 2012, 13, beginning of 13, I was already doing a little bit of film stuff as a hobby and as a passion. And I was out in Los Angeles trying to get somebody to look at some of my stuff. And the trip didn't go that well. But on the last day there, I went into Mike's store on Melrose and was just blown away. I commissioned some custom Air Force One shoes. He does these amazing pieces of art, even on the sides of small areas in unconventional settings. And I became a better customer. We stayed in touch. And then he started inviting me out to some of his parties that he would have there on Melrose. And we became friends. I had him out to Maine, where I live, a number of times to do murals at my house. But then he was wanting to do something more of the activist bent with his murals, and talked about doing a tour in gang controlled areas or areas of high poverty or crime. And he wanted to put messages in the form of branding and forgiveness and love and peace. And this is at a point that I wanted to do some more serious, important work in my own career. So in 2016, he did his first mural that says forgiveness on the corner of Slauson and Hoover. And we were already filming beginning of that year and even before that. But I brought on board the director, my dear friend David Benner, in 2016. We took over 30 trips out there. It's been a number of years to bring this to completion. The tour continues. Mike just actually posted pictures of the 14th of the 20 that they say, be optimistic. And it's a beautiful mural out there. But our film is finally coming out to a wider audience on February 20th, this coming Friday, the digital release on Apple, Amazon, YouTube, Google, and we're real pleased to be showing it locally one more time in Maine, where I live, at the Regal Cinema on Thursday. So I'm delighted to talk to you now. It really is the end of the journey as far as putting it out and everybody else getting to enjoy it.
Wow, there's so many things to unpack by what you said. And I think the first thing is that it just kind of goes to show that here you are in the Los Angeles area trying to get some traction for maybe your different projects, and then you wander into the store strictly as a person kind of checking out the work, and then you see something that you love and you commission some shoes and you start building up this friendship that something you weren't even looking for. It just kind of happened. And then it sounds like you're probably like how I am. Once these opportunities kind of show up, you start massaging them a bit, and then it starts to turn into something else. And then you had this idea, in 2016 to start filming and bringing your director friend on board. And it's like, we wouldn't even be talking now if you hadn't walked into that shop.
Completely. I still appreciate, the people that, if you trace it back, this step and this step and this step, and at any one point, I had done a extravaganza, I called it, with a bunch of artists and a rapper and a funk band and a comedian. And I'd shown one of my movies that was called Dave's Intervention. and or maybe it was its predecessor, excuse me, Jim Jones Juice, and had nothing to do with the cult leader, had nothing to do with any sort of horrible act like that. It was a satirical, environmentalist, psychedelic, subversive comedy that was a half hour. But we did this extravaganza at this place in Augusta called the Governor Hill Mansion, and it was snowing that night. It was awful weather, but friend of mine, a guy, Toby and Jeannie Hoxie, had a friend that lived out in LA that was a line producer on a reality show about whales. And, you know, that was the one contact I had. And she was gracious enough to meet with me when I went out there. I showed her some of my films. You know, she gave me some notes, and things didn't go that great. You know, it didn't in and of itself seem to bear a lot of fruit, but goes to show that something that was just vesting for later, that in retrospect, we can all see, oh, it was so good that, you know, to have that warm relationship with so-and-so and to go take a chance, even if it seemingly ends with a dead end or failure or otherwise, just making that contact with Mike never would have happened had I not been out there at least trying to forward what wasn't the right project for the time or for me at that point anyway.
Yeah, I love those type of things. I'm definitely the type of person that starts tracing steps back and the whole 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon or whatever you want to call it. And that also helps me be even that more grateful for how opportunities do. Just sometimes they kind of happen, and it's interesting. We're talking about this right now because last night with my my guest, we were talking about just trying to be nice to people and putting your best foot forward, because you never know where that could lead down the road. Even 10, 15 years down the road, you could be sitting across from someone at a job interview, and you're like, God, that person looks kind of familiar to me. And then you realize, oh, I didn't treat them very well way back when. And now it might come back to haunt me a little bit. So it's like, no, try to do the right thing when you can. Everyone comes up short at times, including myself. But my intention is never that. My intention is to try to, knock it out of the ballpark or, get that touchdown or what have you. I got football on the brain from a week ago. But well, I think another thing that's interesting about what you were saying was that, so I have a background. I worked as an instructor in the south part of Seattle, and I was working with students that were either long-term suspended or expelled from the Seattle school district. So most of them were gang-involved youth. I did that for over 10 years. So one of the main reasons when I saw the trailer for your film, when it was pitched to me, was because it spoke to my background. So I know, though I don't know, gang hoods in Watts and Compton and things of that nature, but I do know them up here. I worked with students and families for all those years. So I'm like, oh, this is really interesting, because we had lots of nonprofits and other organizations that we work with trying to do positive things with these youth, because they need that. They're not getting it anywhere else. And just the community at large too. So when you're working and making all these trips out there, and since it was a period of years, did you start figuring out like more different paths and different subplots of things that you wanted to kind of put into this documentary, or you're like trying to just stay, no, let's just make sure we focus on Mike and we don't get too far and too large, but then we'll never get done with this thing?
We knew it was going to involve, if you want to call them subplots or additional characters, but the emphasis on family, we had a gut feeling about that from the very beginning, because truly the more you found out about him and met others, the more it both made sense and the more remarkable it became, just with his sisters and with his parents and with his uncles. And it's an incredible story. Let me ask my dog. Hey, Haley, stop. I have these 4 dogs. I'm the board president of the Humane Society, and I've been on the board 10 years. And sometimes I think it's part of your job as a board member to take one for the team and adopt a couple of harder to place or high-strung dogs. And so forgive me for completely interrupting the story. I'm completely lost, Mark. Can you remind me what I was answering?
Yeah, no, not a problem. You were talking about the more you got to know Mike and his family and everybody else, that you kind of knew where these other pieces were going to have to come into play.
And that it really is the heart of the movie, is about his family. We have the murals that get ticked off one by one that are remarkable and that speak to different themes and areas of need in the movie. But to me, the real heart and soul of it is about his family, reflected on the circumstances in Los Angeles and in this country. And his dad's a Vietnam veteran, but yet when he was seeking help for drug addiction, you know, our VA hospital system wasn't able to support or didn't support. So there's the tragedy of that, as well as there's the American celebration of, against the longest of odds, becoming successful. And that's Mike and his sisters. And it's a testament to their mom as a 31-year teacher and educator and woman of faith. And there's a lot to get out of this movie, I think. It speaks to both nature and nurture when it comes to human talent, human potential, societal pressures. It's a lot to consider. And his family was just the thing from the very beginning that underwrote the real current and real heart and theme of the movie.
Yeah, that's very well said. I think that's for people that are going to get a chance to watch this starting this Friday, that anyone should be able to relate to the family aspect of this film. I mean, just whatever your dynamics are with your own family and maybe things that you're doing on your own. Maybe you're into the arts and you're doing something and you couldn't have done it without the support of mom or dad or brother, sister, uncle, grandma. And then the other part, just watching Mike do his work is just, it's mind-blowing work.
Did you get a chance to watch all of the film, Mark?
I did, yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, let me watch this film because I want to see. And again, it puts me back to what I was doing for my day job over 10 years ago, working with youth populations. And Mike spoke to it in this film without giving too much away to people, that people have a certain idea in their head when they hear about gangs, the hood. Even if you say Watts in California, like, oh, Watts. Same thing happens up here. If you're talking about the Rainier Valley in Seattle, like, oh, I won't want to ever go down there. And I grew up in the suburbs here. I didn't grow up in Seattle whatsoever. So even when I first started that job, I'm like, what did I get myself into? These students came into, they look different than what I was used to because I was teaching at a different school at the time. They acted differently. They were kind of questioning me because they could tell I was not from their hood. And it was really a learning lesson, a lot of growing, a lot of steep learning curve at some times. But boy, what I found out at the end of the day was that they're a 12-year-old like any other 12-year-old I've ever worked with. They just have, in some cases, more baggage.
Right.
Yeah, and it also sometimes extends to their family, like generationally extends to their family. Oh yeah, we've been Hoover Crips since 1982 kind of thing. It's like, oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. But for people that were talking to me that never go down there, they're kind of like, how do you do it? How do you even manage to make that work? And it's like, you have to kind of try to remove that lens and just take it, actually go down there or come with me, come visit my class, see what's going on down there. And you'll see, we laugh, we have a good time sometimes. And also I hold a real high expectation for these guys because they're used to pushing and pushing and pushing on walls until somebody pushes back. And so it was a part of my life that I'm so grateful that I got a chance to do and be a part of. And so, like for yourself and the director and everybody involved with the film, do you have any background working with gang involved youth or these type of areas, or was that all brand new to you as well when you started getting involved with the film?
The short answer is no, not specifically, but have been around, kids of all ages. I have three daughters that are 21, 17 from my first marriage, and then the one that's 1.5, my wife and I had a couple of years ago. And my wife was a public school teacher. My wife also worked in special ed in the middle school at the public schools system around here. My mom was a teacher. My aunt did high school. So I have some level of compassion and feelings for the challenges the teachers and the administrators undergo, especially when there's either not staffing or sufficient funding for kids that really need a lot more help to succeed in the classroom setting. And then those challenges are exponentially harder in Los Angeles than they are in rural Maine, because you've also got the insecurity faced by a child that's living in an area that's controlled by gangs where there's the threat constantly of violence, and how that disrupts their ability to exist, much less to thrive academically, socially. But Dave and I, the director, it's funny, during the filming of this movie, even one year, when his son was in 5th grade, that son now is a junior in high school, Dave became the head coach for the 5th grade Parks and Rec Augusta, Maine travel team. And I was his assistant, and it was the best experience coaching these kids. And we brought them along, which is very satisfying, but very different experiences for these kids, where you have the ones where the dad who coached them and the mom that's very involved. You have the other kid who has the mom who's very involved, but the dad is absent. We had another kid who was in foster care, him and his sister, and even had to like move homes because of an unsafe situation during the season. You know what I mean? So it gives you that awareness that even in a more rural state, and Augusta is the capital of Maine for what it's worth, but that you have kids facing challenges that are consistent with what you see in the film. Those are just all the more harder and more incredible if they're faced in a big city environment where there's also the constant threat of gang violence, of gun violence. It's remarkable. But yes, I've had, you know, the limited experience and have the perspective of being 49 years old and knowing people from different backgrounds now. And it's all the more remarkable, Mike and his sister Carmel, his sister Joy, all of them, to be the people they are today.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the takeaways from watching the film and seeing, sister's a doctor, Mike's he's a businessman, he's an artist, he's got all these things going from, and like you mentioned, mom has been this, steadfast rock in their lives while dad was, working through his issues and being incarcerated. It's again, it kind of goes back to like, you don't want to judge a book by its cover. And that cover might be a city, it might be a whole several blocks. You just don't actually know. I'll talk about this one little aside because it just popped into my head. I love telling this story, and you'll relate to this because I used to be a special education teacher myself, and I was at middle school level, so I know what that's like too. But when I was down in South Seattle, I remember talking during December one year about, I love this time of year, and I always had great memories of making cookies with my family and all that kind of thing. And those kids, it was completely foreign to them. They're like, what are you talking about? I mean, we've never done that. If we're lucky, we might buy some cookies at the grocery store kind of a thing. We've never made anything, especially during the holidays. And I was just like, I couldn't even fathom that. I mean, that's how removed I was from, their situation. So I'm like, well, let me look into this. I'll talk to, our principal here and see if I can make something happen. And maybe we'll start baking some cookies before winter break. And we found a church, and they had a kitchen, and we found some transportation. And there was a day when all the students showed up, and we did it in waves, so that we went into the kitchen and we made everything from scratch. We weren't buying logs of dough or any of that kind of thing. It was like, no, you're going to measure stuff. You're going to put it all together. You're going to have to wait for 12 minutes for these cookies to bake. Don't eat all of them when they come out of the oven. And it was the students themselves that said, hey, we should bring some of these back to some of the people in the office that they liked. So like our office manager, the executive director of the company, I didn't bring up any of this stuff. They're the ones that said we should take some of these and make little baggies or something and give it to them. And it was one of my best memories of working with those students, of seeing them act like 5-year-old kids with aprons on and flour everywhere and everything happening. And also that they had such good hearts that they were thinking beyond themselves. And these are kids that don't have means. They really don't. And they're still thinking, I'm not going to take all these for myself. I want to give some to these other people. It's just another, we could probably talk for hours about.
Well, I agree with you, Mark. And to your point, society winds up poisoning that sweetness and poisoning that earnestness in these kids that do need, support. To argue over funding of feeding kids in schools or not, and about the implications of only feeding the poor kids and the ostracization and stigmatization, as my teeth and tongue fall out of my mouth, for these kids, it's awful. And if we even built, 3 or 4 fewer nuclear submarines and scaled back the nuclear stockpile a hair, we wouldn't need to do these PTA fundraisers. We wouldn't need the teachers themselves digging into their pockets because they only get $200 or $500 a year to spend on, a kid for the entire, and I know what my wife spent out of pocket and to decorate the rooms. And it's completely not right. It's completely not right that we don't fund education and to even feed kids and to even assess the number of disabled people. There's wonderful work that does still get done because of the community and because of some organizations, and whether it be churches or faith groups or charitable groups or community groups. Special Olympics is a wonderful organization, and I've supported them in the past and gone out to their events and had friends and loved ones that were involved with that. And the best thing about it is that at least a lot of people get seen and assessed, physically, just to participate in things. And for adults especially, they can be very isolated if they don't live in a congregate situation. And that's a challenge because a lot of that population thrives in smaller groups of like 3 to 5. I've asked people about this. I really have. And we can just do better as a society. And I'm an independent. I'm not a politically affiliated person making any statements to provoke any sort of argument or reaction. It's just, it breaks my heart. And so the stuff going on in LA that Mike's doing, that Carmel's doing, it's inspiring to me and makes me want to help here in Maine where I live. I belong to a church that has a very active food bank and food pantry. And I do that once a month. I just took the Serve Safe or Safe Serve course and got 29 out of 30 and passed it to be able to transport and, sort stuff. But, it'd be nice if that stuff just existed in our country. We've got such incredible gross domestic product, stuff that gets promoted and,
Yeah.
I know it's not what you have me on here to rant about, Mark, but it's, I feel strongly about these issues.
No, I'm glad that you're expressing your point of view, because that's part of what I do with this. And these conversations are very much conversational. It's not, well, here's the question from Mark, here's the answer from the guest. I don't like that. I have to do those kind of things in person when I have 10 minutes. I can't sit there and kind of ramble about things. But in these cases, that's one of the beauties of having a live stream, that if the guest has some time and I have some time, we can actually kind of talk about the picture as a whole, not just the thrust of why we're here. And they're all connected, obviously, about what we're talking about. And one thing that I've brought up before, and I think it's interesting for most people, because even for myself, I don't think they quite understand what the producer's role is with a film. They kind of think that they're just kind of somewhere in like a tower somewhere, and they throw money at the film. The director's the one that does all the business. Can you kind of speak to what that role is specifically for this film and what you did?
I understood the distinction between a director and producer when I was a young man in the late 80s or mid 80s, whatever it was, and I was watching the wonderful Saturday morning cartoon Muppet Babies. And Kermit was the director, and at some point or another, Miss Piggy came over and things weren't going the way she wanted for the production, and she announced herself as the producer. And Kermit or somebody asked, well, who's the producer? And I think she karate kicked Kermit and said, it's the one who fires the director. So Dave and I are dear friends, and we've been great friends for a long time. And the director has the responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, we'd go on the road. It's up to Dave to be sure we get all these shots and to manage the sound person, that the sound person's doing this or that. And if we have a camera person, and as the person just at the end of the day, sometimes I would wind up conducting the interviews, if you even want to call them that, because we don't have like our part of it so much in the movie, but a lot of those with Mike, I was, the one prompting. Dave did it too, but we did it together. At the end of the day, stuff's up to me, you know what I mean? And I was the one that had to facilitate that happening. I was the one that conceived it with Mike and it's different than if it were a narrative feature or short film or something, which we've done in the past with Dave as the director also. And we've worked well together with me as an actor and Dave as the director. And he and I worked together on our Happy Tales web series at Happy Tales at KVHS. There's 45 episodes on YouTube of me profiling dogs and cats and ferrets and birds and stuff available for adoption at the Humane Society shelter where I'm the president. And we also interview people. We interview the director, or animal control person, or dog trainer for tips and public service things. It's something that we're developing actually for TV. But Dave has directed me on that as well, and we work well together. So distinction between producer and director, it applies less, I guess, with documentaries. But Dave and I, we do these things together.
Okay, and to kind of piggyback on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Dave was listed as the editor as well on the film.
He was, and he did a fantastic job. We got to post-production, and that's when I brought on board wonderful company called Fifen, and one of their founders and head producers, Molly Connors, is on the Maine State Film Commission with me. So shout out to Governor Janet Mills for appointing both of us a few years ago. And I wanted to be the chair of that, but the governor wanted Molly to be the chair and let me be the vice chair. And I was so impressed with this lady. She's a wonderful producer, Emmy nominated, was an executive producer on Birdman that won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and Michael Keaton won Best Actor. Tremendously talented lady, and has a post facility down in New Jersey. I wanted her to do the color correction and do the sound design and help with some marketing and consulting. She also gave me some notes and suggested we make some changes. So we broke the bones in post-production and reset them. I worked with a lady, Christina Stiles, an editor from Los Angeles, and then a guy, Sam Radusky, in New York City. Dave's fingerprints and my fingerprints are still all over the film. There's still even unchanged sequences that Dave did exactly as they were in the original cut, but the new cut is much better. If the old one would have been an A- or A, I give the new one, A+. I couldn't love it anymore. And Dave feels the same way. We had my narration that we had professionally recorded that was in the original version with it. Molly, and her colleagues, Amanda Bowers and Alex Spat, suggested I at least consider, trying a cut without narration. Best decision we ever made. So with each of us humbling ourselves a little bit for the sake of the betterment of the film, everybody came out better in the end. And it's a more accessible film to more audiences without my narration. So
I love that the behind the scenes information you just provided. I'm that kind of geek. Because now I'm picturing in my head the film. I'm trying to picture your voice narrating scenes.
Oh, it was good, and there was some intros. And I earned my SAG card last year. I'm an actor. I'm an award-winning actor. Buffalo Niagara International Film Festival, 2017, for my lead performance in SRQ State of Mind, a film that I wrote and produced, and Dave was my co-star that we shot in 2011. So that's how long Dave and I have been working together on one thing or another, and it's a nice combination. But yeah, we took my voice out of it, and couldn't be happier with how it wound up. We licensed one of my favorite all-time hip-hop songs, Award Tour, by A Tribe Called Quest, that's in the film. We have Mike's gorgeous sister, Joy, who's tremendously talented singer-songwriter. She does the song in the end credits. It's really a pleasure to work with so many other people, and teamwork makes the dream work. It's not just the producer, it's the producer relying on the director, on the incredible subjects, on the cooperation of family, on the crew, on all the post-production people, the sound people, the editors. It's a team effort.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing I've learned from talking to folks that are involved with any film. One is that I'm amazed they ever get made because there's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
And then, like you mentioned, there's the team members, everyone from, doesn't matter if you're a grip, you're a what, you're catering, every piece of it, someone's got something to do with this. If you don't do your job, it's gonna affect the end product at the end. And so, like, I think I'm trying to think in my top of my head that your film might be the one that's had the longest journey from filming to coming out. At one point, there was a gentleman in Germany. It took him 6 years to get his feature film finally out to the world, so to speak. And I thought, 6 years? And he had to take a break because they lost funding and all these other kind of things. And they had shot in Thailand as one location. And so when they started picking up, he's like, some of that footage, we can't even use it because it doesn't make any sense that we're going to be filming the rest of this in Germany now, and all these kind of things, which I'm sure are not foreign to someone like yourself when it comes to trying to make a film. But it's just, I think I get so much more appreciation when I hear things from like what you're talking about and all the different people that came into play, and also some of these alternatives. Hey, why don't we try doing this without narration, and let's see what happens with this. And oh, this is an A-, but now it's an A+. So let's roll with this. And you just never know. That also it's a good story, at least for somebody like myself, that don't forget to kind of listen to other people at times, because sometimes it's like, oh, I know exactly what I want, and I don't want to hear any of this other. This is how this song is going to be, and this is how the guitar solo is going to be, and you can't tell me different. And they're like, Mark, just no, I don't want to hear it. And then they're like, try this, and you know what? That was actually better than my idea. I hate to admit it, but as I've had to learn over the years, for sure, of like, you know what, take in if it's someone you respect and someone that you trust and those type of things, absolutely listen to them. And even if it's someone who's not in that realm yet, you might be able to kind of listen a little bit and see, you know what, I think they might be onto something here, instead of being completely dismissive like I used to be like 10, 15 years ago.
So were you living in Seattle when grunge and everything hit in the 90s? And are you old enough to remember all of that, Mark?
Yes, I'm in my mid-50s, so I've been here.
Okay, good. So we can talk about this for a second. That's important. That was my freshman year of high school, exactly when Smells Like Teen Spirit got onto the radio. You know what I mean? Like I can, as distinctly as anything, freshman basketball, Sarasota High School, 95, 94, 93, 92. So it would have been like the fall of 91, right before 92. And then, and then Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and everybody. And tell me, would you grace me with your recollections? However, in the interest of time, you do whatever you want. I'm all ears. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I think about like, Nevermind and some of the other albums that came out, I remember I was in college and I was over in the central part of Washington State. And when I first moved over there to go to class and everything, the dorms are always blaring Smells Like Teen Spirit, Thunderstruck from AC/DC was something else.
Yes.
Was always getting blasted. And I had a friend way back we've known each other since elementary school, and he was living off campus. And anytime I went there on a Friday night or a Saturday during the day or whatever, he's blaring some old thing because it didn't matter how loud it was out there in the boondocks where he was living. And it was usually Nevermind. He was also a big fan of the opera fan, so he had a whole weird juxtaposition of things that we played. But to get back to your question, my friend that I also knew from elementary school, we would go to a lot of heavy metal concerts and things all through the years. My first show was in 1979. I went to saw Kiss. I was 9 years old, and it was downhill ever since. Since then. But that same friend, when we got out of high school, he kept inviting me to these shows. And I'm, for whatever reason, I don't even really know the reason. I was I don't really feel like seeing that, or it's some local thing, so I don't really know. Maybe the next show. I just kept pushing him off. And he was Alive, Even Flow, those videos when they're shot here. He was at those shows. He's in those videos somewhere. I could have been at those shows if I had said yes to him. So he had his finger on the pulse of what was going on with all the bands around here. And finally, he said, Mark, there's a Rising Star show from KISW, which is still a rock station here. So it costs like $5 to go see something at the Paramount Theater, which holds about 2,400 people. And for whatever reason, I decided to say, okay, yes, I'll go. Didn't really know anything about these bands. And so here's the lineup. The opener was Mookie Blaylock, which became Pearl Jam.
Jeff Ament, right? It was his.
Yeah, it's the really early stuff.
That's why Pearl Jam's first album was called 10, because that was Mookie Blaylock's number for the number.
Yeah, it was that, and then those guys turning into Mother Love Bone and that whole bit, and then the surprise, or not surprise, but the special guest slot for their album release was Soundgarden. And then the headliner was not a local grunge band, but this up-and-coming band from LA called Jane's Addiction.
Wow.
And so that was the lineup for $5. And I loved the show, loved everything. So I said, no, I understand why you've been, trying to get me to go to these shows. And he was just exasperated at that point. Like, yeah, you ding dong. But so he saw Nirvana many times. He saw Mudhoney, Alice in Chains. Alice in Chains actually played a festival here over Labor Day called Bumbershoot. And I could have seen them then. That's when you pay for one ticket and you can see as many shows or concerts. You just walk around the ground and see whatever. I remember they played there and it was packed. It was freaking packed for that show. I don't even know if Facelift was out at that time, and maybe it was really close to it, but there's certainly a huge buzz around town with all those bands and the Central and the Off Ramp and all those kind of clubs that they were playing. And what's kind of nice now is that even like someone like Mike McCready from Pearl Jam, he still plays with some of these local bands like Thunder Pussy. He's a big fan of them. It's an all-female band, and he'll show up on stage. He just did recently, and he might be just kind of at shows. And there's there's no pretense to him. I mean, he'll talk to people, he'll take pictures with them. It's just like he's just another fan. And it's just like, well, you're also in this huge band over here, but he doesn't look at it like that. He remembers playing in this metal band called Shadow in Bellevue, Washington, back in the early '80s. And he's like, no, this is my, my home, and this is what I do. And I'm never going to get to that point of like, I don't want to talk to you, or don't look at me, don't stare at me in the face, So unfortunately, I don't have all those personal experiences during the late '80s, early '90s, but I was definitely around it. And then through my friend, who I'm still friends with to this day, he likes to kind of remind me about what I missed out on. But yeah, absolutely. I'm a big music nerd. So Eclectic Arts started with music, doing music interviews, concerts, concert photographer, that kind of thing. And then I started moving over to what I consider the arts part in 2018. And I just wanted to do an interview. I wasn't even trying to cover a show. It was Love Never Dies, Andrew Lloyd Webber's sequel to Phantom of the Opera. Was coming here to Seattle. I thought, it'd be kind of interesting to talk to one of those leads, either the Phantom or the Christine Gaillet character. And I won't go through this whole story because I've told it before, but it took many, many hoops to get through and get approved to talk to Megan Pacherno, who played Christine Gaillet. She was amazing, wonderful woman, great interviewer. She is so fun and bubbly and had lots of stories to tell. And then they offered me, hey, Mark, do you want to come and watch the show tonight? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm here. Well, I didn't expect that, but thank you very much. And then from that, it became looking into local theaters, and then it became looking into the ballet here, looking into the opera, and then film for me on a professional level. It didn't happen until the pandemic. It's one of the few silver linings that I have from that I'm really grateful for, that somebody that I had met at, here we go again, that whole 6 degrees of separation. I was at a horror convention called Crypticon Seattle in 2013. And Tyler Main, who was Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie Halloween films 1 and 2. He was in Troy. He was Sabretooth in the first X-Men and also in the Deadpool Wolverine. He had a little cameo appearance, so he was an actor. And his wife, Renee, had a film that they had made. So I'm like, oh, okay. And we're going to do a showing, Mark. So if you can make it on Monday over here at this thing, there's maybe like 50 of us there that went there, saw this film that they made called Compound Fracture. And I was like, so what do you have in the pipeline? What else is coming? Oh, we're working on this film called Penance Lane. So again, this was 2013. And all the way to the pandemic, I finally saw something through social media and said, wait a minute, I think that's that film they were talking about 7 years ago. So I reached out to Renee, and she remembered who I was. And I said, oh, yeah. So I'm like, is there any way I could review this? Here's what I've been doing since you last met me. I have all these artistic credentials and all this kind of stuff. Oh, yeah, I'll get you in touch with the distributor. So they sent me a link in April of 2020, got to watch that film. I wrote a review of it. And lo and behold, this actor that had a small part in it saw my review. And he's like, and he reached out to me directly and said, hey, I saw your review. I directed a film in 2018. Would you be interested in taking a look at it? I said, absolutely. What else am I doing right now in April of 2020? So I looked at his film, and then I looked at the distribution company. It was the same distributor. So I reached out to them, and they said, oh, yeah, we have some other films. So it just snowballed from there. Then I started looking at film festivals in 2021, especially with the virtual options. So that's how I got to do Tribeca and Milwaukee and Bentonville and a bunch of other, and Seattle SIF here locally. But
which one of those was your favorite places to go visit, either because of the festival or because of the place itself?
So the ones that I did outside of Seattle were virtual. So I think that actually good to go to the place. But I can tell you, in terms of just the programming and the festivals and things that I've covered over the years, my favorite one was Milwaukee. And I just, the programming folks there just kind of somehow speak to me. The things that I'm kind of looking through the programs, I've mentioned this before to other people, that they always send out, like, you know, the top 10 films. Don't forget about these films, and they're going to be the ones that might get distribution and all this kind of stuff. I never look at that stuff. I look at the program from beginning to end and say what stands out to me. If it's short film blocks, if it's something, a documentary, if it's some feature length film that's you know, that they're doing, and I just start making my list. And you know, some things are hits and some things don't quite work for me, and that's okay. But I don't want to have somebody tell me that these are the best ones, because there's going to be something that's really, really good in here, and I'm going to miss it because I listened to you. And one of my favorite short films of all time is, oh gosh, now I've talked with the two creators many times for different interviews. Oh, this is terrible that I'm forgetting what it's called. But anyway, I love that film. I've rewatched it probably 12 times at least. It's about a 27-minute film. And it was just so good and so touching and so well done. They're like, Mark, we shot that over a weekend, you know, in 48 hours. And here's all the behind the story things with it. And I'm like, this film is just so good. And other people that I know locally that watch it, they're like, oh, now we know what you're talking about. This thing was so good. So the one thing with, as we've come out of the pandemic, thankfully, that with SIF, let's say locally, and I understand why, they want you to get to as many theaters locally as you can to watch these films on the big screen. And then the virtual option is at the very end of everything. And I don't live directly in Seattle, I'm north of it. So, and I always have a day job and things of that nature and other things I'm responsible for with the media outlet. So trying to see, you know, 20 films in 14 days or whatever it is, it's just not realistic for me. So if I can see a couple in person and then tag it with the virtual thing, then that's perfect for me. But then coming out of the pandemic, doing virtual interviews and then doing all the film stuff, and then I went back into being in person at stuff and concerts and theater and all that, it became two worlds colliding. It's like, I don't have enough time in the day to do anything, and I don't want to do things poorly or even good. I want to do them great. So I had to kind of pull back, and unfortunately, film festivals is a thing that I cut last year. But I still do, obviously, film reviews and film interviews, but this year, I'm trying to get back into doing at least one film festival virtually if I can. SIF, I'm not sure about yet. There's just so much that's involved with it. Yeah, so that's, sorry, I ran on a whole tangent.
You're good, brother. You're good. I have been to film festivals where I got to see a lot of the other people's films, and I've been to ones where I saw only my own or a couple of others. And the festival that did a really good job this year, we were down in southern Maine in Biddeford, Vacation Land Film Festival, headed into this big, beautiful opera house. We got the audience award and we got the Spirit of Action award for socially conscious, positive films, but did a panel on one of the other days and got to be on that with some other filmmakers, and it was terrific as far as with meeting people and very interesting people. We went to Brooklyn for the Greenpoint Film Festival, had a great experience. We were down in Fayetteville, Arkansas for the Fayetteville Film Festival and had a great experience. And then we launched it last May over in Cannes during the Cannes Film Festival in the Palais there in one of their other market theaters. And it's been quite a journey to finally be at the end. And then we played it out in Los Angeles for a couple of weeks at the Laemmle and Laemmle Theater in Glendale, and then I forget the name of the place in Inglewood by SoFi Stadium, but that was as part of a Academy Award campaign trying to get onto the nomination list. And unfortunately, we weren't to appear on that list, but it was a great experience. We got to do a lot of publicity and press while we were out there. We were in the Hollywood, we were at the Sunset Hollywood Hotel that whole time, and it was cracked up to be. The people were charming, and had a great time, but happy to be back in Maine. And now the big digital release is Friday, February 20th.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm kind of thinking about when you're talking about the various film festivals you've been in and being out in LA and trying to get on the Oscar list. How hard is it to get distribution? Like you just mentioned, it's coming out digitally on Friday. How hard
this is the first project for which I've ever gotten distribution. And it was a big part of why I worked with Fyfen and Molly and Amanda and Alex and all them. They helped coordinate with a group called Bitmax, who are terrific. And so it's going to be nice, whether it's from Apple or Amazon or YouTube or Google, or then in a few months, we're going to be on Tubi also for folks that want to watch it and just download the app. And they'll have to endure some commercials, but I'll still get paid and they can watch it, but it's a process of, getting somebody to deal with it, Mark. To be honest, I didn't do much of that myself. That's why I appreciate the team I have. I wouldn't have known where to start. Honestly, I wouldn't have known where to start. You get approached by people at film festivals, certainly, when you have something that doesn't have any sort of an arrangement. And oftentimes festivals, whether it's the founders or people on the jury, a lot of times they'll have their own distribution contacts or arrangements or whatever. And they find a lot of films that way that go and are either well received at festivals or perform well, whatever. But we're real happy with our arrangement, and it's going to be available to the worldwide audience this coming Friday.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've again, some of the folks I've had a chance to talk to, there's a wonderful actress up north in British Columbia, and she was so sad because one of the films she had worked on, probably maybe 3-4 years at this point, she says, Mark, I think it's going to stay on the shelf. That guy, he just can't find distribution for it. He's been doing the film festival circuit, he's been doing everything, and no one wants to bite on it. And so that's really sad. And again, for I think the general population to watch movies, we don't realize that happens. Someone can put their heart and soul, this whole team puts their heart and soul into something. We just need that one chance, that one opportunity to get this out so eyeballs get on it. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. And then on the other side, I just had this memory. I was at a film festival here, the SIF one here locally, and I was literally at the theater to watch this film, and they came out and said, we're going to screen the film, but it just picked up distribution. So any media people here, so I raised my hand, and it said, you can only write a capsule review. You cannot write a full-length review for this film because it just got picked up by distribution. And they said at one point there was talk about them not showing it at all. They were going to pull it from the festival. And I'm like, that was the first and actually only time I ever experienced that, where we're literally sitting there waiting for this thing to start. And they're like, yeah. So obviously the film people are super happy about it, but we're kind of like, are you still showing this? Yeah. If I don't have to write as much, that's okay. I'm not going to complain about that, but it was just a unique experience that happened. And clearly, yeah, also for people out there, that's why film festivals are important. I mean, that is a lot of times they can show their wares, so to speak, and then there might be a company that's interested and they want to talk about, hey, I want to get this out to America, or I want to get this out to Europe, or I want to do whatever with it, and then also hopefully you get a good deal. They're not trying to pull one on you. I've heard that other side of that too. Yeah, you guys, sounds like you got all the platforms. You mentioned Tubi is going to be another option. It's this Friday. So everyone's going to get a chance to watch this. That's one of the things that has been really hard with short films. And I remember what that film was that my friends made, Static Space. It's what it's called, and it's on YouTube. So people, if you want to watch it, or Chris, if you want to watch it when you don't have anything going on, sounds like you have a ton of stuff going on. But
Static Space.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's on YouTube. If you put that by Static Space short film, that's what should show up with Kate and oh gosh, and then her co-directing friend. These films, man, there's so much that goes into making them and getting them out there. And if you have any interest in film, I don't know too many people that don't want to watch a movie every now and then. That there's kind of keep that in mind. And still, if something doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But there's one thing I love about documentaries is that I always feel, even if it's a subject matter that I have like nothing vested in whatsoever, I feel I can learn something from it. And that's always a good day to me. That's a win if I can learn something new. So anyone that's going to take a chance, this film is worth your time. I can tell you that right now. So, and clearly talking with Chris here, you're so well spoken, and you have so many things going on. And
oh, Mark, finish
yeah,
your thought. Oh,
yeah, yeah. That you've been a really wonderful guest to have on and to talk about this film, and also that I have to ask you, like, how far back then? It's like, when did you start getting into acting? All the whole thing that's revolving around, what you do now.
I've wanted to do this since I was a little kid, watching the original Muppet Show and Kermit putting on a show, and being the host, and being the actor and performing the music, and working with everybody else and collaborating and having that tremendous creative camaraderie. I've always wanted to do this. I was in plays as a kid, and I was certainly in plays in high school, both as the lead a couple of times as well as supporting character, and always wrote stories from the time I was a little kid. My first grade teacher, Mrs. Ellis, will still tell you about me writing like a 42-page illustrated book about dinosaurs when I was in first grade. It's always been something I've wanted to be creative. I wrote a screenplay when I was coming out of high school and in college. Didn't produce it, but then was always chomping at the bit. Once I got right about almost into my 30s and then early 30s, I started really eagerly outlining stuff to do a movie, and always envisioned myself acting in it. And that became SRQ State of Mind, something that I never ultimately put out. It's a gangster movie. I'm glad I didn't put it out. It's darker content. I don't want all my kids watching it, but have always wanted to do this. And the documentary aspect comes from, like yourself, an appreciation of learning, an appreciation of people, of exploring and understanding, and then showcasing positive stories. It's just something I've always wanted to do. I have one question I wanted to ask, though, Mark, because I've been to Seattle one time for like 48 hours, and we went to one of these landmark, celebrated tourist spots. What's with the gum wall?
I don't know what's with the gum wall. I don't know the story behind it. I know they cleaned it. They took all of it off.
Oh, praise the Lord. I'm glad. It needed to be cleaned when we were there.
They scraped all of that off, and it basically looks like they never did. It's all back again. There's just gum everywhere. Yeah, if you came back out, right now and saw it, you're like, this doesn't look any different. Like, didn't Mark say they cleaned this? Yeah, it was down to just a bare wall again. And then instantly people wanted the wall back. So they started putting gum like every freaking day back onto that thing.
Like, we can all get behind them, throwing the fish. We all find that charming, but the gum wall, it blew my mind.
Have you ever seen those things? And I don't know if it was a TikTok thing or a social media thing where people were being dared basically to lick it.
As well, let's talk about the spectrum of bad ideas, of where it fits, whether it's which side of it, a Christmas Story of him the kid sticking his tongue on the frozen pole. I'm thinking that's a worse idea, although I'm thinking that I'd want my entire tongue and not just the top surface layer removed if I were to lick that gum wall out in Seattle. I don't know if they do tongue transplants.
I'm right there with you. That is disgusting. I mean, on the nth degree, that is so disgusting. And why that even came into existence, I really don't know. And it's to the point, though, like we have family that live out of state through my sister-in-law. And so they already know about it. So they come up here to visit the very first time. They want Pike Place Market, Space Needle, all that stuff, Starbucks. And then they're like, where's this gum wall?
Right. See, that's the problem. Seattle, Office of Tourism has a problem with that gum wall. It's a good thing they scraped all that off, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, I'm I'm right there with you.
That's a great hotbed of basketball talent. That was the other thing I wanted to ask. If you remember, like Zach Randolph or Jamal Crawford or any of those guys, Nate Robinson, any of those guys, when they were either in high school or coming up as basketball stars, if that was on y'all's radar at all.
Yeah, I remember. So Rainier Beach High School, being like where I think Jamal played there. It's one of those schools to this day where it's like it's such a hot ticket just to see any matchup, not just the big, rivalry game. And that's even further south than where I used to work. So you want to talk about like the hood of the hood? That area is there. Look at this talent that came out of that school. And like with Nate coming out from UW, and I remember like the first Sonics, game that I went to. This is back to the championship year team. So Jack Sikma and Gus Williams and Dennis Johnson and Wally Walker and all those guys, downtown Freddie Brown. What was really cool for me many years later is that I was a season ticket holder for the Seattle Storm, the WNBA team. And so we had seats that were in the fourth row on the court. So we weren't the rich people in the front row, but we were in the fourth row. And every now and then when guests would come, they got to sit near us. So I got to see Gary Payton. I got to see Nate. I got to see Jamal several times. Jamal would always come to the games. And during a break, or definitely during the halftime, kids would want to come down, and get pictures and that kind of stuff. And typically they would oblige. They had no problem. There'd be like a security person there. So, okay, now move along. And here's another person. Here's another person. And then, of course, there's people like me, like an adult. Hey, I want to get a picture too. I want to get an autograph. And those guys were, again, really, really accommodating. I think they're really proud to be from this area and they kind of know how they were treated. I didn't see any of their games when they're coming up through the high school or college level. I was actually at it was Key Arena back then. I was at the arena for a Storm game when that news broke that we just sold the Sonics and the Storm, because all the news crews were outside. That game was early. It was like a noon tip off. And when I came out, somebody wanted to try to get a quote from me, but how do you feel about the teams being sold? And I didn't want to talk to them. It got around during the halftime that look on your phone, and we're all looking at stuff like, what the F is this? And this actually happened. And then we were just fortunate that, the ownership group that came together, Force 10 Hoops, I believe they're called, bought the Storm back basically. But then of course we've lost our Sonics since then.
You're going to get the Sonics back. They're going to do it. They'll do an expansion team in Las Vegas and Seattle, probably at the same time. You know what I mean? But that's everything that I read, and I think that's what the league wants, is for Seattle to get a team. Montreal needs to get their baseball team, the Expos, back too. That's the other place that needs their team back, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I know they've been talking about Silver's going to have those meetings to see if they're going to try to push the idea forward of the expansion. And yeah, they keep saying Vegas and us. And we're like, was it really 2007 when we lost the team?
Kevin Durant was a young man in his first year in the NBA after coming out after being player of the year as a freshman at Texas. That's how long ago it was. And he's still great, but I think he's 37 now or whatever.
That is so crazy. I have a jersey of his when he was here. And just to think of that timeline of how long it's actually been. Yeah. So with Oakland, there's a perfect example, losing your baseball team, losing your football team, that's so rough. If you're a sports person. And I got to ask you this, since you're in New England, are you a football fan or?
I'm a big fan of all of the major sports, particularly basketball. I played basketball at University of Maine of Augusta. I've rooted for the Celtics most of my life. I was a huge Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Dennis Johnson, fan with those teams in the 80s. Was a huge Michael Jordan Bulls fan in the 90s. My grandfather was from Illinois and rooted for the Cubs and those teams. But now it's wonderful because kid from right up the road here in central Maine, Cooper Flagg, the whole state is rooting for him, and we're all excited to see his success in Dallas for the Mavericks as a rookie. I'm going to that game with my wife and all three of my daughters. I'm going with my wife and one of my oldest daughter, and then my middle daughter is going to watch the little baby during the game at an adjacent hotel within Boston Garden. But it'll be the first time ever of him playing the Celtics, and that's coming right up in March. I've already got my house sitter lined up, and yeah, it's a great time to be a basketball fan. People bemoan the NBA and they bemoan the All-Star game or the regular season length or the playoff format, but the skill level is at an all-time high. Yes, the guys were greater and tougher and everything in Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. That's my opinion too. But the game itself, it's at a beautiful point. It really is. I relish Victor Wembanyama and all these other guys that are in the league now. It's an exciting time to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to the WNBA side of it. Like every season, every year, it's like it gets tougher and tougher to grab a spot on a team because the talent is so high that you could be like maybe a star at the college level. You might be on the bench if you even get to the bench in the WNBA level. And now they're trying to expand it and all these other kind of things. But I was a season ticket holder for almost 10 years. So I got to see the very first championship that the Storm got in 2004. That was my first year as a season ticket holder. So I was like, well, I can't get any better than this. And then we got back there a few other times. So I got to see Sue Bird pretty much play her entire career here. I got to see Lauren Jackson. I got to meet all those players too. And then on the NBA side, we're just kind of all been basically sitting around hoping and praying that we will get these Sonics back or whatever they're going to call them. Hopefully it's the Sonics.
It'll be the Sonics. I think they'll treat it the same way that the Cleveland Browns treated that situation with the franchise. I think in all likelihood they'll approach it the same way. The Charlotte Hornets regained that name also after that franchise moved, and then they were, given a new one under the Bobcats name. So I think the same thing will occur in Seattle with the Sonics. I hope so. I'd be shocked if it didn't.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, there's just so much history here with that name and the people locally. It's just like, you better not call it anything else.
It's a great time. It's a great time for the WNBA also, just because also the skill level is at heights that nobody could have ever, imagined. Even 25 years ago. And my father and I say that, just you watch, and not even just WNBA, you watch Division I women's college basketball, the shooting is just extraordinary. And there's really not a huge separation at the elite level with some of the men. Obviously, the difference is the physicality and the ability to play inside and everything else. But as far as just a straight up shooting competition, apples to apples type thing, it's extraordinary. And they've also benefited from having breakout star after breakout star come into the league. It wasn't just Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese coming into the league. They had the Paige Buckers, and I'm probably butchering the poor thing's last name, but her coming into the league from Connecticut, the Juju Watkins girl who's from Watts, and that's one of the original founding prominent families in Watts. So Mike will tell you, Mike Norris, that it's incredibly exciting for that whole community in addition to casual fans and sports fans. So I think the WNBA, they'll figure out some of their revenue sharing stuff that they're at odds about right now. There's too much money to be made for the players not to come to some agreement with the owners, and for the owners in the league not to facilitate something that the players don't need to work overseas, the entire off season, playing in Russia or otherwise. They should be able to make a living over here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's one of the things that prompted me to get season tickets that very first year. It's like I was looking into the price disparity between the Sonics and the Storm, and then also at that time I didn't realize once our season or their season was done, they all dispersed to different places around the world they need to make money. I was like, man, the kind of wear and tear on your body playing year round, I mean, that's ridiculous. And so it's been an uphill battle for them, all these years, and it seems like they're getting better opportunities, if you want to call it that, and things are kind of heading in the right direction, I guess is the best way to say it. I mean, like you said, that's so inspiring, with Juju coming from that area for everybody there. It kind of reminds me even a little bit for if I go back to football with like Richard Sherman being from Compton, and going to Stanford and all these kind of things. There's another example like, hey, this person's highly intelligent. This person has had family structure around him and whatever else kind of going on for him. And you can't just immediately dismiss him. Oh, you're from there. Oh, you must be like this. It's like, no, he's a Super Bowl champion now, and he's got a mouth on him. But he's
making a living. He's making a good living in retirement now, being able to take advantage of that skill and ability and talent. So.
Yep. He's Thursday Night Football. There he is, doing his thing. But Chris, as we get close to winding this down, I do thank you for the extra time too. This has been awesome.
It's my pleasure, Mark. It's my pleasure.
If we go back to your wonderful documentary, if you had to pick, and I realize this is kind of like picking your favorite child, but what is your favorite or one of your favorite murals that Mike did?
It's not one that's in the film. It's one that's in my house. He did one in my rec room, and it's like this beautiful wave. So you see on one wall like the barrel of the wave, and then over top of the ceiling, it goes from a deep blue into the sort of sudsy white. And then he incorporated these little tiny mirrors so the lights catch them when you go in the room, and it's this spectacular barrel wave over the ceiling. You can't really pick a favorite mural either. He's got other ones that are wonderful that are even more meaningful to me personally, but that's in the flamingo mural that he did. I have a room that's now my baby's playroom that was my arcade. I've even still got neon that says Flamingo Arcade over top of it, but pulled the original Donkey Kong antique game out of there, pulled the Pac-Man game out of there. The little baby runs around and has her toys in there now, but she still has these big, beautiful flamingos that Mike did a combination of air spray painting as well as paintbrush details. And, that's a neat one too.
Well, that's awesome that you have his actual work in your home. And as you said, also you had shoes made when you first met him. Again, for folks, this Friday, pretty much anywhere that you stream things digitally, Artfully United documentary film that Christopher Walters is the producer on, is available too. So all the stuff that we've been talking about, you can finally watch it on Friday. You can rewatch it. You can tell all your friends about it, share the link, all that kind of thing. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time and for making such a wonderful film. It's an important film, and I hope everyone out there sees it.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it, brother.
All right. Take care. Have a good evening. It's late afternoon over there. All right. Thank you.